Isn't it frustrating to follow a God who constantly instructs us to wait on him? Why is waiting such a part of spirituality? Because waiting is where faith actually becomes necessary. I mean, think about it. A God of immediate gratification requires no faith. It's in the waiting and the silence where faith actually develops. And so Thomas lives for 8 more days within his doubt. He lives for 8 more days within his doubt, but at no point is he living without the presence of Jesus right there with him, waiting for just the right moment to break in. And so the 3 days that exist between the crucifixion and the resurrection, they teach us what? That the presence of silence never equals the absence of God. The presence of silence never means the absence of God. So,
you know, there's a timing that God has for everything. Trust his timing. Ecclesiastes 3:1, he says, there's a time and a purpose for everything. And when your time hasn't come, what do? Trust him. When your prayer is being delayed, what do? Trust him. When you spoke to the mountain but it won't budge, what do? Trust him.
We all have things that we're waiting for. A dream to come to pass, problem to turn around, or to meet the right person. When it's taking longer than we thought, it's easy to get discouraged, to become impatient, and think, when is it ever going to happen? But sometimes it's not happening because we're not prepared for what God has prepared. You're ready for what you have in mind, but if you could see what God has in mind, you would realize you couldn't handle it right now. You need more time to grow, to develop, to gain experience. And the scripture says, let patience have its perfect work. Patience is developed in the wait room. You may not see anything changing, but something is happening. Patience is working. Your spiritual muscles are getting stronger. You're growing, developing. Patience is building you, getting you prepared so you can sustain what God has coming. Don't discount the waiting periods. Don't get discouraged because it's not happening as fast as you would like. The longer it takes, that means the more God has in store. When it's your time, when he knows you're ready, what you give birth to is going to be much bigger than you've imagined.
Most often when we feel like God is doing nothing, y'all, he is crafting chapter after chapter with the story of your life. That he's fully engaged and fully invested in the details of all of our everyday living. He is never not doing nothing.
We never grow spiritually when everything in our life is just the way we want it to be. I mean, you can learn something, but you still don't really know it if it's just in your head and hasn't been worked into your life yet. The only way you ever know what you really believe is to have it put to the test. We can sing about trusting God and we can talk about trusting God, but not one of you really knows whether or not you trust God until something happens that makes absolutely no sense in your life, and you feel like it's very unjust and not right, and you can't get any answers from God, and you don't feel like he's anywhere in the neighborhood, and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. That's when you find out if you really trust God. He wants us to believe him, to trust him, to wait on him with a good attitude. As long as you're believing, God is working. And I'll tell you what we need to be saying more of, and I've been doing this for a good number of years, and it's really, really helpful. When I'm waiting on something, and then I start to think about how long it's been, and my mind starts to go negative, I say out loud, God is working. God is working, and it helps me because he is. When you get a breakthrough, God didn't start just working on that a second before you got it. God's working in your life right now. He's heard your prayers. He's working in your situation. But especially when you've prayed prayers for other people, you have no control over how long it takes them to listen to God. Faith is for when you don't see anything, when it doesn't feel good, when you have questions that you're not getting answers to. And faith is a matter of the heart. Faith can believe that God is working and that something good is going to happen when everything around them looks the exact opposite. I know it doesn't make any sense, but I believe God. I believe God's working. Something good is going to happen to me. This is going to change. And I don't know how long you will have to wait, but I do know that God will come through. And I do know that you can enjoy your wait if you will just improve your attitude.
Sometimes in hindsight, you see more of the why behind the wait. I'm going to talk to somebody here because right now you don't see it. But years from now, you may look back and say, oh, wow, well, I'm glad he didn't, or I'm glad he did. Sometimes in hindsight, you can see the why behind the wait. When we look back, we can see exactly why God waited for the perfect time. His ways are always good. Just because God feels silent doesn't mean he's absent. Whenever you're waiting, remember, our God is working.
And one reason we get in a hurry is we think we're falling behind. Our friend is getting married. Our coworker got promoted. The neighbors moved into a new house. We got to make things happen. We're being left out. Well, here's the key. What has your name on it will not go to anyone else. What belongs to you will not go to another person. David was out in the shepherd's fields when the prophet Samuel came to his house to anoint one of the sons as the next king. David's father, Jesse, didn't even bring David in. He thought, there's no way it's David, he's too young. When Samuel went to pour the oil on the other 7 sons, the oil wouldn't flow. God was showing us no matter how hard someone tries to get what's yours, they may manipulate, connive, ignore, leave you out, the oil is not going to flow to them. What has your name on it is coming your way. The person, the job, the house, the opportunity, the promotion cannot go to anyone else. That's why we don't have to live jealous or envious of other people. Well, Joel, my coworker got the promotion that I worked so hard for. They played politics. It wasn't fair. If it was supposed to be yours, you would have it. Stay in the weight room. Keep a good attitude. Keep growing. Keep passing the test. What God has for you is on the way. The reason it's taking longer is because it's much bigger, much more rewarding than you thought. When you see what God did, you'll say, it was worth the wait. When you see the person God brings into your life, somebody better than you've dreamed, you'll say, it was worth the wait. Psalm 37 says, don't be impatient for the Lord to act. Travel steady along His path. He will honor you and give you the land. When you're faithful in the weight room, when you don't get impatient, you don't get frustrated by closed doors, you don't live jealous of others, because you're traveling steady, honoring God, He will give you the land. That means you don't have to make things happen in your own strength. You don't have to manipulate people, try to force the doors to open. God will give you the position.